What's going on, guys? It's June. We're about halfway through the year so far. A lot of good movies have come out so far. We know there's a lot of Oscar bait still ahead, but we decided to compile some of our favorite movies of the year to date. And we've assembled an esteemed panel of critics to talk about that very subject. First, she's a film reporter from the LA Times, and she's a great friend of the family. Welcome back, Jen Yamato.
Hey, Yamato!
Very excited to be here.
You've seen this guy around here many times. You know him from Movie Review Talk with Scott Mantz on Collider, and he's also my biological father.
My son!
Scott Mantz.
Thank you, Hal.
And you know this woman from Screen Junkies News. She does it all around here. Welcome to the couch, Roth Cornet.
Oh, yes. I'm very glad to be on the couch.
So Jen, do you want to get us started with one of the movies that you really liked so far this year?
Yes, I was so happy when Coralie Farget's Revenge came along. It's a French language genre movie released by Neon earlier this year. What it is a revenge movie called Revenge about a young woman who goes to a remote hideaway with her married boyfriend for a lovely romantic weekend, only to have that totally ruined. And then they leave her for dead. That's where I believe that story really begins. It's about her journey, it's about her transformation, and it is a really powerful, visceral thriller.
That base premise, it's sort of like I Spit on Your Grave meets In the Company of Men.
Wow.
It's like what you wish would happen to the men in The Company of Men. It's mixed language, there is some English in it. She's meant to be an American. But it's stylistic in a way that I think elevates the film. Some of the aspects of it aren't necessarily realistic in terms of how the human body would react to certain traumas.
Even though it's such dark subject matter, it sounds like a really accessible
It's very
film.
intense. It's very suspenseful. It keeps you on the edge of your seat.
Scott Mantz.
Listen, just because I cannot wait to talk about this movie. It is my favorite movie of the first half of the year, by far. It is also a thriller. It is also suspenseful. It is also a very commercially successful film. I loved A Quiet Place. I felt like this was so unique and different and fresh and fun. And John Krasinski, it's his third movie as a director. Who knew that he could do something so confidently, and it's such a bold film because of the premise. And I feel like it is this year's Get Out. This is an Oscar contender for Best Picture, for Best Director, for Best Original Screenplay, and
Mantz pushing his chips in the middle of the table for A Quiet Place.
Any time on this.
I didn't see the level of political. Wait, hold on one second. I didn't see the level of political commentary in A Quiet Place that I might have seen in Get Out, but I have to give it to you. It is masterfully directed and edited.
I thought it was moving. It has a lot of heart, more heart than you'd expect from a movie like this.
Okay, but that ending...
But the
ending was great! Jen, come on!
I don't think it's this year's Get Out.
Yeah.
But that's okay, it doesn't have to be.
I think it's this year's best Cloverfield movie that wasn't a Cloverfield movie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
And we can all agree, except for Mantz, not this year's Get Out.
It is.
Let's go to Roth. Tell me one of your faves of the year so far.
Yes, and it's one that I've been surprised to see is as divisive as it is, which is Hereditary. I really thought that everyone was going to love this movie. Not the case, unfortunately. However, I did. This is director Ari Aster's feature debut. It's such an intense family drama, and really it's more that than a horror movie, and the horror elements are sort of subtly laid in until it very much escalates, and it's like, oh, that escalated quickly at the end, and becomes a full-blown Rosemary's Baby experience by the end of the movie, The Exorcist, exactly. So it's playing with very modern ways to tell a horror story and very classic. It's a metaphor for how we all inherit patterns in our family, we inherit fears in our family, and we inherit curses in that way. And Toni Collette, that's an Oscar performance for the ferocity, for the total willingness to go to any given place,
and
deserves a nomination.
And the versatility that she shows throughout that entire movie.
Yeah, it's emotionally all over the place.
Don't you swear at me, you little Don't you ever raise your voice at me. I am your mother.
Jen, would you drop another one on us, please?
Yes. Here's a big one. Are you ready?
Uh-oh. Do it.
Ooh, do it.
It is the best romantic comedy to come along in years. The original Netflix major motion picture, Set It Up, is the best rom-com I've seen in so long in a genre that has been so dead for so many years.
Yeah.
Totally is.
That there is a real, it's so funny. It stars Zoe Deutsch and Glenn Powell as two assistants who are overworked by their demanding bosses who work in the same building. They meet cute and then decide to plot to parent trap their bosses together so that they can have some time off. It's brilliant.
Whoa.
Will their bosses fall in love? Will they fall in love? The dialogue is some of the, I think, the most astute and acutely real dialogue that I've seen in not just a romantic comedy, but in most movies these days. It just feels like how real, how people talk, how real young adult professionals talk.
Another movie that I think was underserved this year, and I think is a really great rom-com, and also the John Hughes movie that we deserve, is Love, Simon.
Oh,
and I know
yeah.
that's not even necessarily on my list right now, but I just want to take this tack on to that. It's very much things you've seen before in John Hughes movies, but it's a story of a boy coming out for the first time in high school and meeting and falling in love for the first time. It's gorgeous.
2 movies that I haven't seen yet, 2 movies that I really want to see right now. Thank you, ladies. Scott Mantz, do you have something for us?
I have to talk about a romantic comedy.
Yeah.
I mean, like Love, Simon, wonderful film. I love that movie. Set It Up. It's on Netflix now. I mean, it's a wonderful film. What says romantic comedy more than Black Panther? No, seriously. Black Panther was fresh. It was different. It was a culture, Wakanda. We never saw anything like this before in a superhero movie of any kind. Ryan Coogler did a great job directing that film. Chadwick Boseman was great as Black Panther, but I got to tell you, in a lot of ways, his co-stars were even better than Chadwick Boseman. Nothing against Chadwick Boseman, I thought he was great. But like all these cast members were fantastic. And it just was a really smart story. It was fresh. And for them to be this far along into the MCU and to really do something that's different in a genre that has every reason to be stale and formulaic, Black Panther is anything but. I thought Black Panther was fantastic, and it's definitely one of the top 10 best superhero movies of all time.
They're
Best
killing.
MCU movie of the year?
Best MC,
That's
best
so
of the
hard to
year
say.
so far.
Okay,
I
yeah,
did like
excluding
I did like it more
Ant-Man
than
and Wasp.
Avengers: Infinity War.
I
Gotcha.
loved them both. I think that they're very different movies, and Infinity War is almost like, unlike any other movie, if you're not invested in those 18 previous films, it's a very difficult movie to follow. But for me, Black Panther, like, I know there's like sort of always a backlash when people really love a movie and then we find the reasons not to. I continue to love that movie. I think it's a really great comic book movie.
If I hear any more backlash about La La Land, I'm going to freak out.
No comment. On that note, Roth, why don't you tell us about another film that you love so far from this year?
Absolutely. Well, Jen, if you are tired of formula and if you are tired of being able to predict what's in a movie, I know you love this one too. Sorry to Bother You is the antidote for all of that. This comes from Boots Riley. It's not out yet. It's going to be out in July. Highly recommend that you see this movie. Caveat there, it is truly unlike any other movie you will see this year. It defies categorization. It is surrealist. It is absurdist.
Totally absurdist.
It is Being John Malkovich meets Do the Right Thing.
Whoa!
And it's none of those things. And it's none
I
of
like
those
that.
things.
This.
It is bonkers, bananas, insane, and awesome. It has so much social commentary. So much to dig into and talk about after this movie. This will leave you talking for days.
It is set in and was filmed in Oakland, California, where Boots Riley, the director, is from. Boots Riley is already quite known from music as a rapper and an activist. He is very active in the Occupy movement. And a lot of Boots' core themes that have been prevalent in his work are in this movie, such as how capitalist systems sort of prepare us to give our own power away,
Like that's
among
hypnotic.
other things. It's about gentrification. It's about race in America today, on top of a really fun, original, crazy, entertaining plot.
Back around to Jen. Jen, please favor us with another one of your choices.
There is yet another genre movie. It is called Upgrade.
Gotcha.
This Upgrade is a sci-fi thriller about a man who, in a terrible mugging gone horribly wrong, loses his wife and is rendered paraplegic. He then agrees to have an experimental, very secret operation done that fuses an experimental operating system into his brain.
It's like the $6 million man.
Oh, yeah.
That allows him the use of his limbs and thus allows him to seek revenge against those who
You
have
like these
wronged him.
revenge movies, don't
Yeah.
I do. Yes, I do. Or do I?
Don't
Yes, I
piss
do.
Jen off.
Right?
No. And it's just really fun. You feel the DNA of a lot of iconic sci-fi genre movies in this movie. Like man, machine fused together.
Yes.
What could go wrong?
That-
Is in this, and there's some really inventive, very physical action scenes where the star Logan Marshall Green, who's so great in this movie, is playing a man who is not in control of his own body and is bewildered in his face while his body is doing all sorts of crazy stuff. And overall, I find it a really great, small-scale sci-fi genre movie.
Let's go to Scott Mantz and hear about a movie.
You know what? One of my favorite things to do every year, in fact, my favorite thing to do is Sundance. I've gone 16 straight years, and the discovery of seeing a film at Sundance, you have no idea what you're in for, like Hereditary. You just don't know because there's no previews, there's no trailers. It's all about the discovery. Well, I knew who Mr. Rogers was, but I did not expect to be so moved by Won't You Be My Neighbor, directed by Morgan Neville. I did recently a bunch of Q&As with him at some of the theaters around LA that in the middle of the afternoon on a Saturday in the summer were sold out. And I started off by saying, ladies and gentlemen, raise your hand if you never saw Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Half the people in the audience never saw it.
Wow.
But they know who Mr. Rogers is. They know what he stood for. They know what his ideas are. And that's what this movie is. It's about his ideas. Yeah, he's talking to kids, but his delivery is also comforting for grown-ups. He was talking to the kids in the room and the grown-ups sitting behind the kids watching the show with him.
I would like to know what Mr. Rogers' advice would be for living in the world of social media.
A lot of times, even when we agree with someone politically, there's no allowance for the evolution of a human being anymore. Certainly in social media, everything is binary. You're a good person or you're a bad person. You're not a person that's allowed to evolve, change your point of view, anything. Mr. Rogers allowed for all of humanity. He allowed for his own humanity, and by the end of the movie, he allowed for his doubts. There's letters revealed of his doubts that when he knows what he's doing, is he doing anything good? It allowed for that moment of self-doubt at the end. Did anything he do impact us?
Yeah.
And it just like reveals who we could be if we were willing to be vulnerable.
Roth, would you please tell us about one more movie that you really got a kick out of this year?
I thought about adding First Reformed, which may end up on my list of the year. Yeah, it's great. I thought about adding a fun movie like Game Night, which was surprisingly funny, but maybe not. Thoroughbreds, Have a Nice Day. There's so many wonderful movies this year, but instead I chose what's probably the most controversial of the ones that I love, and it's How to Talk to Girls at Parties. This is a movie that is a rotten on Rotten Tomatoes. Critics did not like it. It is certainly not for everyone. This comes from John Cameron Mitchell, who originated Hedwig.
Yeah.
Hedwig and the Angry
Yes,
Inch.
and star of the feature film Hedwig and the Angry Inch.
And
Yes.
Short Bus,
And
if anybody
Short Bus.
remembers.
And Rabbit Hole.
And Rabbit Hole, which is how Nicole Kidman came to be in this very weird movie. That is basically about punks and aliens colliding in London. If you're not sold, then get out now, because it's only going to get weirder from there. This movie, a lot of ways, kind of represents adolescence. Even the aliens are going into different forms. They're trying to understand what they are on Earth or in their other forms. They're trying to understand what their purpose is. Do we consume our youth, or are we consumed by it? All of this is very, very messy, and you will leave this either loving it wholeheartedly for its unabashed freaking weirdness, or absolutely hating it. And what is more punk rock than that?
Jen, let's come back around to you. I know you had one more.
It premiered earlier this year at Sundance. It's called BLINDSPOTTIng. Similarly to Roth's impassioned pick, is in its own way about sort of existential inward probing into who we are, our identities, who we are in relation to the world that we have been born into. It's also about privilege, and it is also, like Sorry to Bother You, set in and shot in Oakland, California. Also from Oakland homegrown filmmakers, Raphael Casal and David Diggs, who wrote, produced, and starred in this film. It's about two guys, best friends. One is black, one is white. One of them has newly gotten out of jail and is on parole, and it is in his final days of parole until he is truly free again. And it's about them sort of going out into this world, their daily lives. It's also about how gentrification has changed their world. It's about how black and white identities are in relation to each other in close proximity in cities like this. And it's just a really great drama with a lot of, I think, funny moments as well, with two great performances.
You have to support that so you don't just get the same old formulaic garbage that we get a lot. Although there have been a lot of really great movies so far in the first half of 2018.
For sure, and I think you had one more for us.
One more that I loved, and I was saving this, I was saving A Quiet Place for last.
But you just couldn't contain it.
I couldn't help it! I couldn't help it, Jen.
Couldn't stay quiet about A Quiet Place.
Who could stay quiet about A Quiet Place? But no, the movie I do
Won't you be my neighbor in A Quiet Place?
The movie I do want to end with is Annihilation. Annihilation. This movie worked for me on so many levels. Cerebral, and it's got a great cast, an all-female cast of a science team that goes into a mysterious area that might be evolving due to the presence of alien intelligence. And it is very existential. It has shades of Stanley Kubrick. It has shades of 2001: A Space Odyssey, which is very fitting because this year does mark the 50th anniversary of 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Which came out on which date?
Which came out on April 3rd, 1968.
Insanity.
April 3rd, 1968.
We have to monetize it, Scott.
Wow.
We have to monetize this.
Wow.
I mean, how do we monetize this? Thank you very much for
If you have
asking,
any
bud.
ideas on how to monetize Scott Mantz's weird superpowers.
Movie release dates.
Yes.
But guys, I mean, this movie I've seen it twice now.
Yeah.
And it's the kind of film where you will get more out of it the more that you see it and the more times you see the film. The second time, I liked it a whole lot more than I did the first time. I think it is an instant sci-fi classic.
Scott, another great choice. You guys, you've listed a lot of movies I love. You've listed movies that have rocketed to the top of my must-see list. Any other honorable mentions or shout-outs you want to make? I mean, I'll throw one out there that I haven't heard. I was just delighted by The Incredibles 2. Any others? Any others that you were thinking about? Almost made my list.
You know what? Yes. This movie, because you talked about some movies opening in July that we've already seen. Three Identical Strangers. This movie is amazing. Just see this film. The less you know about it, the better. Trust me. Trust me.
Roth, any others?
Rapid fire shout outs. Paddington 2, Don't You Sleep on
Oh,
That
yeah,
Bear.
Paddington
Never sleep
2.
on that bear. Loveless is amazing. RBG, have a nice day.
Have a nice day.
Yes. So many movies. If you haven't seen all of these movies, go watch them all right now. And a lot of them are available on demand, and they can watch instantly, so do it. I want to thank this esteemed panel of movie minds. Roth Cornet, Scott Mantz, Jen Yamato, thank you so much for dropping knowledge with just such thought and care. I mean, some of your descriptions of these movies, I'm like, wow, why haven't I seen that already? I cannot wait. Thank you. And thank you for watching Screen Junkies. I'm Hal Rudnick. Hit us all up on Twitter. Bye-bye.